So today we are going to discuss about kidney. So since now we have discussed three mechanisms of renin secretions. So now today we will learn about the action of renin, angiotensin and aldosterone. So in the last lecture we have discussed about the renin secretion mechanisms, two local mechanism and one intrarenal mechanism. But the question is that what this renin will do in the blood when this renin comes in the blood circulation. So here I have drawn the diagram. Here is our general circulation, right? So from here it is bleeding. So here there is less blood flow. Kidney, and here we will take one nephron out of this kidney. So here suppose this is nephron, this is thin part, and this is also thin part of loop of Henle. Then it is thick part. Then it is cannulated tubule, distal cannulated tubules, and the end part of the nephron. So here is our that filtration is going on, right? So when we have talked about the renin secretion mechanism, so here sodium is reabsorbed. Near about 65%. So here one is the and here are some connective tissues, right? So when there is less blood flow, suppose for the kidney, right? So it increases the renin secretion. It increases the renin secretion. So here this renin is coming, and this renin is going into the circulation, right? So another one protein is secreted by the lungs. So all of you know the hepatocytes secretes the protein mainly known as angiotensin. angiotensinogen. So liver used to produce most of the proteins like albumin, globulin, alpha globulin, beta globulin, but not the gamma globulin. So gamma globulin is the immunoglobulin and it is secreted by the plasma cells. So liver produce a special protein that is known as the angiotensin. So when this angiotensin it is secreted into the blood, so this angiotensin is present every time in the body, but not it is produced by the liver or hepatocytes only in the crisis, but it is always present into the blood. So this renin will act on this angiotensinogen and it converts this angiotensin into angiotensin 1. So I write here. So renin with the action to the angiotensinogen, so it will convert in angiotensin 1, right? So when this angiotensinogen, it is a precursor of angiotensin, so it is having near about 10 amino acids, but with the action of the renin it is converted into angiotensin 1. So here it remains only 8 amino acids. So after this conversion of angiotensin 1, so this blood goes to the lungs. So here is suppose our lungs, right? So when this blood goes to the lungs, so in the lungs capillaries, so there are some endothelial cells, pulmonary capillary is having endothelial cells, and endothelial cells, so here on endothelial cells one enzyme is present, and that enzyme is called angiotensin converting enzyme. So here this enzyme is present here. So when this angiotensin 1 it passes through the lungs capillaries, then this angiotensin 1 is converted by the enzyme into angiotensin 2. So by the endothelial cells, the enzyme is present on the surface of the endothelial cells. So that's why it is called as the ectoenzyme, or the angiotensin converting enzyme is present on the surface of the endothelial cells. So here this angiotensin converting enzyme, it converts angiotensin 1 into angiotensin 2. So meanwhile, again some good doctors know that this enzyme, angiotensin converting enzyme, is having another function. That function is that. So there is another one enzyme which is present in the blood, that is known as the bradykinin. So this enzyme also inactivates the action of bradykinin. Action of bradykinin. So here it does not forget to inactivate the action of bradykinin which is present in the blood. So here again we will see about this, how the nature has made a very good arrangement for the, if a person is found in an accident, he is bleeding and his body is deprived with the less blood flow and blood volume, and our body has to increase the blood volume and the blood pressure which can maintain the heart regularly. So for this, here we are talking about the angiotensin converting enzyme. So first it will convert angiotensin 1 into angiotensin 2, and afterwards it also inactivates the action of the bradykinin. So what is the function of bradykinin? The function of bradykinin is vasodilator, and the function of angiotensin 2 is vasoconstrictor. So here, when this angiotensin 2 is having the action, that is the vasoconstriction, due to the vasoconstriction there is increase in blood flow. So now again we will try to understand about how there is an increase in blood pressure. So how this angiotensin 2 helps in increase the blood pressure. Suppose for example, this is our left heart. This is our left heart, and here is so bloods into from this and this is our circulatory system. So here this is our circulatory system. And here we will find right. So in this on the capillary, so here are the smooth muscles. Here is the smooth muscle. this is the right. So this is atrium, right, and this is vein or the venous return. Okay, so here the blood is coming into the left heart, right? So here suppose the venous return. So here also, so blood is going through and here is the lungs. From the lungs, so it is coming here. From this, it is going here. Right. So blood for the left heart means more cardiac filling. Venous constriction leads to venous return, which leads to cardiac filling, increased cardiac filling. Increased cardiac filling leads to increased end diastolic volume and increased end diastolic pressure. At the end of diastolic volume and pressure is more in the ventricles, and ventricles is stretched. According to the Franz-Sterling law, the force of contraction is directly proportional to the initial length of the muscle. So what happens when blood comes into the ventricles? So ventricles are stretched. So here ventricles are stretched, and whatever the blood it is ejected from here, these are two walls. So when blood is ejected from here and blood is coming here, so these walls are closed, and whatever the blood is accumulated in the arterioles, so here it finds that there is receptors for the angiotensin II. Receptors for angiotensin II. So this angiotensin binds with this receptor and it constricts the vessels. So here when the blood is coming here, it finds that there is a very narrow space is there to pass through. That's why here the pressure in the arterial wall is increased. So when there is an increase in pressure of the arterial walls, so it increases the systolic blood pressure. It increases the systolic blood pressure. So when there is an increased contraction of ventricles, that will lead to increased stroke volume. Increased stroke volume increase the cardiac output, increase the systolic blood pressure, and systolic blood pressure is dependent upon the cardiac output. By the increased atrial constriction, so there is also increase in the diastolic blood pressure. So here also it forms the receptor for angiotensin. So here also it constricts this very space, and due to this preload, heart is found into preload condition, and due to the stretching of the heart, so more accumulation of the blood and more contraction, so blood is ejected into the ventricles. So here by the means of these two system, the systolic and diastolic blood pressure is increased. So here somewhat we have achieved. So here most of the blood is present in the veins. Normally veins contains 70% of total blood volume. So that's why it is called as the vascular component with highest blood capacity. So here by the means of this there is an increase in systolic and diastolic pressure. So again it helps it helps the patient to maintain to elevate the blood pressure. So again that angiotensin II is having the action. So this angiotensin II will go to the outer zona glomerulosa, which is the cells which is present in the adrenal cortex. So again here we are talking about one structure. So this structure is known as adrenal cortex. So here this structure is known as adrenal cortex. And in the adrenal cortex on the surface, so here are some cells are present. So this is called as the zona glomerulosa, right? So this angiotensin 2, again it will come and it will act on these cells, right? And when this will act on this cell, and these cells from the adrenal cortex, so these cells known as the zona glomerulosa, so it will start secreting the aldosterone. Secretes aldosterone. So what this aldosterone will do? This aldosterone, now we are coming to this part. This aldosterone, I will draw a single cell. This aldosterone will, the cell is present on this part of the nephron. So this aldosterone will enter into the cell, and this is single cell, and this will found the receptor for this. It will found the receptor on the nucleus of these P cells. So this cell is known as the P cells or the principal cells. Right. So the action of this aldosterone, first it will open the key of this nucleus and it activates gene number 1. It activates gene 1, and this gene 1 will synthesize some protein, so and it will deposit on the membrane, basolateral membrane of the cell. And this protein is nothing but they are sodium potassium ATPase. So this sodium potassium ATPase, so here they are sodium potassium ATPase. They are sodium potassium ATPase, right? So what will happen? So this sodium potassium ATPase, so here whatever the contained sodium will throw out, and it will take potassium inside the cell, right? So it will take potassium inside the cell. So whatever the sodium is contained, it is thrown outside these cells. But another, the gene number 2 will activate and it will synthesize the channels in the lumen of the nephron, right? So here it synthesizes the channels. So whatever the sodium ion is coming from here, right? So this sodium ion, so again it is secreted into the cell, and from here it will go outside, right? So again these potassium ions will come here, this potassium ions, right? So whatever the water contained, it also follow this, and it will come into the cell, and this water will also come outside by the means of osmosis, right? So water loves to follow sodium, and sodium will enter into the cell, and from here cell, it will go into the interstitium. Like that, water, it follows sodium, it goes into the cell and again it goes outside. Right? So there increase in potassium concentration. So this special type of protein, so open the key of a lock of gene and start depositing or planting the protein on the basolateral membrane of the cells. So they are sodium potassium ATPase. So the result of this, the third gene is activated and it makes potassium channels that start secreting extra potassium ions into the urine. The third gene get activated, this third gene, gene 3, and it starts making the potassium channels. And whatever the potassium is coming from here, right? So again it will come and it will increase the concentration of potassium ions into the, and there is a more secretion of potassium ions into the urine. So here it is a drop of urine, more potassium ions, it is secreted into the urine. So what the system is doing? So here the system is trying to retain the sodium and water. So this water and sodium will help in increasing the volume of blood. Right? So here this system is retaining to increase the concentration of sodium and water. So when there is an increase in concentration of sodium, there is a stimulation of this macula densa, and this macula densa will again secrete the renin, and this renin will again act on this angiotensin. It will convert angiotensin 2, and angiotensin 2 will act on the zona glomerulosa. It will also secrete the aldosterone, and this cycle is going on, repeating unless and until it achieves the increased blood pressure. So again, it is trying to retain the increased blood pressure and blood volume. So again, this angiotensin 2 will go to the central nervous system, and in the central nervous system it founds in the interior hypothalamus, it founds some receptors. So there are some receptors which are known as the osmoreceptors. So these specialized cells called as the osmoreceptors, and these osmoreceptors get stimulated, and it, by the means of depolarization, it depolarizes the neuron which goes to the posterior pituitary gland. So this neuron release ADH at its nerve ending, norepinephrine at its nerve ending, and ADH is secreted by the posterior pituitary gland. But how this ADH will help in maintaining the blood pressure and blood volume? So this ADH containing vessels reach to the nerve ending. This nerve carrying impulse, generation of action potential, releasing of ADH vesicles into the blood. So this ADH will come and this will act on the cells which are present in the last part of the nephron, and here, so here it forms the receptor for ADH, and this ADH, due to that, there is whatever the water is containing here, so this water is reabsorbed, right? So some water moves by the means of osmosis in interstitium. So this will again make the urine hyperosmolar, right? So there is a concentration of urea, concentration of waste metabolites, potassium ions in the urea. With this ADH will bind here and it will reabsorbs the water. It does not allow to lose the water. Simultaneously, it will help in increasing the blood volume. Right. So, but here the story is not over. But again, this hypothalamus, this angiotensin will go to the central nervous system, and in the hypothalamus, it will stimulate the supraoptic nuclei, and at the supraoptic nuclei nerve ending in the posterior pituitary gland, it will release the ADH in ADH. So ADH is a superstimulator of sympathetic nervous system. So here again it also stimulates the thirst center into the central nervous system, and when a person is found, when his body is depleted of blood pressure and blood volume, then he always asks for the water, and his thirst feeling center is activated and he will ask for water. So when he will ask for water, and he will try to take more water, and that water again it is reabsorbed from the intestine into the system, and it will try to amplify the system and try to elevate the blood pressure and blood volume. Right? But story is not over. Right? So here, till now we have discussed about the physiological conditions of the renal system. Now, yet I have not told you about the pathological condition, which is very important to know. So, if a patient is suffering from a conjunctive heart disease, so in that conjunctive heart disease, his heart is not working efficiently, and his heart pump is a failure. And in this cardiac disease, heart is having a very poor cardiac output. For example, in severe heart failure, the contractility of the ventricle is very poor. Eventually, when there is a cardiac output is very less, the heart pump is not functioning properly, and there is no proper blood flow to the different organs. Eventually, kidney is included in this, and when you found there is a decrease in blood volume and blood pressure. So here this system, it sends the blood pressure and sends the blood pressure and sends the sodium concentration, and it will activate the renin, angiotensin, aldosterone system. So here, when heart pump has a failure, then this system get activates to elevate the blood pressure. But so when this system is chronically activated, that is angiotensin, renin, and aldosterone system. So when this angiotensin 2 is chronically elevated and ADH is chronically increased, so this will work on the myocardium, and recently it has been discovered that this chronically elevated levels of angiotensin 2 and ADH, so it will work on the myocardium, and it will change the morphology of the heart. So recently it is discovered that, so due to this there is a fibroblast, and this fibroblast, here there is a deposition of cellular matrix, and there is an increase in muscle mass. So here this condition will increase or stimulate the gene that is known as the proto-oncogene, and this proto-oncogene, which is related to the growth factor, and this will work on the myocardial cell. So when there is an elevated level of angiotensin 2 and ADH, then it will work on the myocardial cells, and these myocardial cells, due to this there is a fibroblast deposition of cellular matrix, and this leads to stimulates the proto-oncogene, and this proto-oncogene is related to the growth factor, and there is an increase in the myocardial cells or the fibers, and this will develop a myocardial hypertrophy. This will develop a hypertrophy, and this hypertrophy is a pathological hypertrophy. It is not a physiological hypertrophy. So this hypertrophy leads to change the geometry of the heart. So when there is a change in the geometry of the heart, this is known as the cardiac remodeling. This is known as, it is recently discovered that when the angiotensin-renin-aldosterone system is elevated, chronically elevated, then it will stimulate the growth factor, that is proto-oncogene, and it will produce the hypertrophy, and it will also alters the geometry of the heart, and this alteration of geometry of the heart, it is known as the cardiac remodeling. So here the contractile machinery, the chronic cardiac failure, so the patient develops progressively cardiac failure, then this ADH will work on smooth muscles of the vessels, vascular systems, and it will also change the pathology, and when the patient will come to you in any condition, in the late condition or the chronic condition, so the first we have to administrate this patient the drug that inhibits the angiotensin 1 into angiotensin 2, or you can also inactivate the receptors, angiotensin 2 receptor. So we have found that here also in central nervous system also, here in adrenal cortex, so there are some receptor sites for the angiotensin 2. So you can also use the drug which can block the receptors. So this will help in preventing the cardiac remodeling, or it also helps in stabilizing the patient. So today we will conclude our lecture, and tomorrow we will see about the mechanism of urine concentration and dilution.